Hi everyone. This week I read another Nancy Drew and it's called The Secret of the Shadow Ranch, which is a mystery that Nancy Drew gets into and she solves. And well, the thing about Nancy Drew is that she gets to solve every mystery that she finds. And it's very strange how she comes across all these mysteries, whether she's at home, whether she's traveling, whether she's specially called in for this detective work. She comes across a lot of mysteries and she gets to solve them, and she gets to solve each and every one of them. So there has, I don't think, ever been a book where Nancy Drew has not been able to solve a mystery. Quite a good success rate. I started reading them out of fun because I just wanted to go back and relive my teenage. When I started reading these books as a teenager, I thought they were amazing books. I still think they're amazing books, but with my more reading different kind of novels, I have figured that Nancy Drew lacks a lot of details, and that's what I want when I'm reading a book. I want details. So half the books or most of the mysteries that Nancy Drew solves is 20% of clues, and the rest of it is intuition, which I wonder how she manages, because if intuition is guesswork, then she gets it 100% right. So she must be very, very gifted. Well, anyways, I now would like to read more books with more details as compared to Nancy Drew, which are not really long books. They're short books. They're about 140 to 160 to, I think the longest book that I've read on a Nancy Drew is probably a 220-page book. So they're relatively very short books, and that is one reason why, if you are a beginner at reading, you should start with books like these, which are shorter stories and easier to read and easier to finish, so you feel accomplished. And that's what I felt when I read these books as a teenager, because reading a 200-page book would take me about a week, and I would feel accomplished at the end. And now it takes me a week to read 500 or 600 pages. So technically I've improved. Well, anyways, I'm never going to say not to read a Nancy Drew, although I don't find them as fun as I did when I was a teenager. But they're still good books. I would still like to go back and read them. I really want to read all these books in the series. Like, I've made a list of all the Nancy Drews practically that are available. But then there are like different series of Nancy Drew world. So there is some Nancy Drew Mystery Files, there are Nancy Drew Mysteries, and God knows how many other books, how many other series there are. Then there is a Nancy Drew and Hardy Boy series. So the ones that I'm reading are like the first ever Nancy Drews written, which are literally 100 years old, almost, at least like 85, 90 years old. And they still work pretty well with our world right now, except for sometimes you're missing the technology. Like, she should have a mobile phone. She should just message Bess and George and talk to them, or things like that, where you're kind of missing mobile phones in the story. But anyways, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. I'm never going to say not to read a Nancy Drew. I would always recommend you to read a Nancy Drew. So if you're here to ask for a recommendation about a Nancy Drew, I'm going to say, yes, go ahead, read it. And I will say, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to come back next week with another book, because I am a voracious reader and I read a lot of books. So I'll be reading another one. I'll be talking to you about it next week. Until then, you guys stick around. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that, and I will see you next week.